When a mysterious letter arrives at Elon Musk's Austin home, it shatters everything he thought he knew about his first marriage. The message is from a dying nurse named Catherine Morrison, a woman he's never met, claiming his late wife Justine had an affair back in 2001, before their son Nevada was born. But there's a twist. Catherine insists Elon can't read the full truth alone. His 18-year-old daughter Alina must be present, because she holds the key to understanding what really happened. As Elon frantically searches for answers, one question haunts him. If Justine kept such a devastating secret for over 20 years, what else didn't he know about the woman he once loved? The affair isn't what it seems, and what his daughter reveals will challenge everything Elon believes about love, guilt, and the tragedies that defined his life. The package arrived on a Tuesday morning in February 2025, delivered by a courier who made Elon Musk sign 3 different forms before handing it over. Elon stood in the doorway of his Austin home, the Texas sun barely up, holding a plain brown envelope that felt heavier than it should. The return address showed a law office in Los Angeles, Harrison and Chen Legal Services. He didn't recognize the name. Inside his office, surrounded by monitors displaying SpaceX rocket designs and Tesla production numbers, Elon sat down and opened the package carefully. His hands moved slowly, deliberately, the way they did when he was solving a difficult engineering problem. Inside were legal documents, the kind that came with estate settlements. Paperclipped to the front was a smaller envelope, cream-colored and old-looking. Written across it in careful handwriting were the words, "To be opened only by Elon Musk." He turned it over. The seal was waxed dark red, already cracked with age. Elon pulled out the letter inside. The date at the top reads September 2024, 5 months ago. He began to read. "Dear Elon, my name is Catherine Morrison. We've never met, though I knew your first wife, Justine Wilson, very well. I was her friend for over 20 years. I'm writing this letter because I'm dying. Cancer. The doctors say I have maybe 3 months left. I've spent a lot of time thinking about promises and secrets, about what we owe the living and what we owe the dead. There's something you need to know about Justine. Something that happened during your marriage back in 2001, before your son Nevada was born. I promised Justine I would never tell you while I was alive. I kept that promise. But now I'm breaking it because I think secrets sometimes do more harm than good." Elon's throat went tight. He set the letter down on his desk for a moment, staring at it. Nevada. His first son, who died in 2002 at just 10 weeks old. That was 23 years ago, but the pain never really went away. It just learned to wait quietly in the corners of his mind. He picked up the letter again. Justine had an affair. The words hit him like cold water. Elon read them again, then a third time, an affair. Justine. His mind immediately went to those years, 2000, 2001, 2002. They were living in California then, in the chaos of building PayPal, selling it to eBay, starting SpaceX. Those were years of constant motion, 18-hour days, stress that felt like it might crush them both. They'd been so young. Justine was writing her novels. He was trying to change the world. And then Nevada came, and then Nevada died, and everything after that felt like walking through broken glass. The letter continued. "I'm not telling you this to hurt you or to ruin your memories of her. But you deserve to know the truth about what happened during those years, about why your marriage really fell apart, about why Justine changed after Nevada died. I've kept journals documenting everything I know. They're in a storage unit in Los Angeles. The address and key code are included with this letter. But here's the thing, Elon. I don't think you should read them alone. You need to read them with your daughter." Elon stopped. His daughter. Why would Catherine Morrison, a stranger, mention his daughter? I know this sounds strange, but trust me. Your daughter holds the key to understanding what really happened. She knows something about Justine's past that you don't. When you read the journals together, everything will make sense. I'm sorry to burden you with this after all these years, but Justine carried this secret until the day she died, and I think it poisoned something inside her. She never forgave herself for what happened. Maybe if you understand the truth, you can finally forgive yourself too. The storage unit address is 4762 Sepulveda Boulevard, Los Angeles, Unit 217. The access code is 2002, the year Nevada was born. I hope you find peace in the truth. Catherine Morrison. Elon sat perfectly still for 5 full minutes. Outside, his security team walked the grounds. In the driveway, one of his Tesla Cybertrucks gleamed in the early light. The world kept moving, but inside this office, time had stopped. Justine had an affair. The words didn't make sense. They felt wrong, like a puzzle piece forced into the wrong spot. Justine had been many things: brilliant, difficult, creative, stubborn, but dishonest, secretive enough to hide an affair for their entire marriage. And why did his daughter need to be there when he discovered the truth? Elon pulled out his phone, staring at the screen. He could call Alina right now at Stanford, wake her up, tell her about this letter. But what would he say? Your father just found out his dead wife cheated on him 24 years ago, and somehow you're involved. No, he needed to think. He looked at the legal documents that came with the letter. Catherine Morrison had died in November 2024. Her estate lawyer had been instructed to deliver this package exactly 90 days after her death, which meant she'd planned all of this carefully, deliberately. She wanted him to find out. She wanted him to know. But why involve Alina? Elon stood and walked to the window. The sun was fully up now, bright and indifferent. Somewhere in Los Angeles, in a storage unit on Sepulveda Boulevard, journals waited with answers to questions he'd never thought to ask. Who was Justine involved with? When did it happen? Did it have something to do with Nevada's death, with the way their marriage crumbled afterward? And what did his 18-year-old daughter know about any of this? His phone sat on the desk, Alina's contact photo smiling up at him. His smart, sensitive daughter who was studying psychology at Stanford, who was probably sleeping right now, dreaming about exams and friends and a normal college life. He had to call her. He had to tell her about this letter, about Los Angeles, about the storage unit with its secrets locked inside. But as Elon reached for his phone, it buzzed in his hand. A text message from an unknown number, the area code showing 415, San Francisco. The message was short. Don't open those journals without knowing the full context. Call me first. Marcus Chen. Elon stared at the name. Marcus Chen. The same last name as the law firm on the package, Harrison and Chen Legal Services. His hands were shaking now, actually shaking, something that almost never happened. He was a man who'd built rockets and electric cars, who'd stared down bankruptcy and public mockery, who'd sent satellites into space and cars into tunnels under cities. But this letter, this secret, this mystery about a woman who'd been dead for 14 years, this made his hands shake. He looked at the text message again, then at Catherine's letter, then at the storage unit address written in careful handwriting. Someone knew he'd received this package today. Someone was watching, waiting for him to respond. Elon Musk, the man who'd never been afraid of impossible problems, suddenly felt afraid of the truth. What had Justine done? What was his daughter hiding? And who was Marcus Chen? The Tuesday morning sun climbed higher over Austin, and somewhere in California, secrets waited to destroy everything Elon thought he knew about his past. He typed a single word in response to Marcus Chen's text. When? The reply came immediately. Tomorrow, Griffith Observatory, Los Angeles, 2 p.m. Bring your daughter, she needs to hear this too. Elon didn't sleep that night. He sat in his study until 3 in the morning. The letter from Catherine Morrison spread out on his desk like evidence at a crime scene. Around him, the house was silent. His security monitors showed empty hallways, locked doors, a world at rest while his mind refused to stop moving. An affair. Justine had an affair. He kept trying to picture it, his first wife with another man, somewhere in California in 2001. But every time he tried to imagine it, the image dissolved. It didn't fit with the woman he remembered. The woman who spent hours writing in coffee shops, who quoted poetry, who wanted their children to love books more than screens. But people kept secrets. He knew that. The smartest people he'd ever met were often the best at hiding things. At 4 in the morning, exhausted but unable to sleep, Elon opened his laptop and searched for Catherine Morrison. He found an obituary from November 2024. She'd been 72 years old, a retired nurse who'd worked at Stanford Hospital for 40 years. The photo showed a kind-faced woman with gray hair and warm eyes, preceded in death by her husband, Robert Morrison, survived by 2 daughters and 5 grandchildren. No mention of Justine Wilson. No clue about why this stranger had held onto his dead wife's secrets for over 2 decades. Elon closed the laptop and stared out the window at the Austin darkness. His mind drifted back, the way it always did when he thought about Justine. Back to 2002. They'd been living in Orange County then, in a house near Newport Beach. SpaceX was just an idea in his head. Tesla didn't exist yet. PayPal was about to make him rich beyond measure, but money felt meaningless compared to what they just lost. Nevada Alexander Musk, born in 2002, died 10 weeks later. Elon still remembered the morning they found him. Justine's scream, the frantic drive to the hospital, the doctors working on their tiny son while Elon stood uselessly in the hallway, a man who could solve equations that most people couldn't even understand, completely powerless to save his own child. Sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS. The doctors said it wasn't anyone's fault, that sometimes babies just stopped breathing for reasons no one could explain. They said it happened to 1 in 1,000 infants. They said there was nothing Elon or Justine could have done differently. But knowing something isn't your fault doesn't stop you from feeling like it is. After Nevada died, Justine changed. She became quieter, more distant. She threw herself into writing. Elon threw himself into work. They moved through their grief in separate rooms, separate worlds. They had 5 more sons after that, twins in 2004, triplets in 2006, all through IVF. Elon thought having more children would help. Maybe it did in some ways, but the shadow of Nevada never left them. Their marriage ended in 2008. Elon remembered the divorce papers, the lawyers, the arguments about custody and money. He remembered Justine's blog posts about their marriage, her anger at how things had ended. He'd been hurt by those posts, by the way she described him as cold and controlling. But he'd also understood. They'd both been drowning in different ways. Neither of them knew how to save the other. Justine died 3 years after their divorce. 2011, a car accident on Pacific Coast Highway, hit by a drunk driver on a Tuesday afternoon. Elon found out from a phone call, the same way he'd found out about 100 other catastrophes in his life. A voice on the phone saying words that didn't make sense. "I'm sorry to inform you." He went to the funeral, stood in the back, watched his 5 sons, 9, 7, and 5 years old, cry for their mother. He held them afterward, these boys who looked like him but had Justine's sensitivity, her creativity. That was 14 years ago now. His sons were grown, or nearly grown. They'd survived losing their mother. They'd survived having him as a father with all his absences and obsessions. They were good kids, strong kids. And through everything, Elon had carried the guilt of 2 failures, failing to save Nevada and failing to make Justine happy. He told himself a story about their marriage over the years. A story where 2 brilliant people loved each other but couldn't survive the weight of grief. A story where tragedy broke something that couldn't be fixed. A story where he worked too much and she needed too much, and neither of them were wrong, just incompatible. That story had made sense. It had been painful but comprehensible. Now Catherine Morrison's letter threatened to rewrite everything. If Justine had an affair in 2001, before Nevada was born, then maybe their marriage had been broken before the tragedy. Maybe Nevada's death just revealed cracks that already existed. Maybe everything Elon believed about those years was built on lies. The thought made him feel sick. At 6 in the morning, Elon finally made the call he'd been avoiding all night. Alina answered on the 3rd ring, her voice thick with sleep. "Dad, it's 6 in the morning. Is everything okay?" "I'm sorry to wake you," Elon said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears, strained and tired. "I need you to come to Los Angeles today. There's something important we need to discuss." Silence on the other end. Then Alina's voice, suddenly more alert. "What happened? Is it the business? Is someone hurt?" "No one's hurt. It's about family history, about Justine." Another pause. Elon could hear his daughter breathing, could imagine her sitting up in her dorm room bed trying to make sense of this. "Dad," Alina said carefully, "there's something I've been meaning to tell you, about the project I've been working on for my psychology class. I found some letters last summer in Grandma Riley's attic, letters addressed to Justine." Elon's heart stopped. "What kind of letters?" "I don't know exactly. They're from someone named David Reeves. I was going to tell you about them, but I wanted to do more research first. I wanted to understand what they meant before." "Alina," Elon interrupted, "I need you to pack a bag and catch the earliest flight to Los Angeles. We're meeting someone at Griffith Observatory at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Someone who has information about Justine, about things that happened before you were born." "Who?" "A man named Marcus Chen. He's a private investigator. He says you already know something about Justine's past that I don't know. He says we need to find out the truth together." The silence that followed was longer this time. Elon could hear his daughter thinking, processing. "The letters," Elena finally said, her voice small. "He knows about the letters." "What letters? Elena, what did you find?" "I'll tell you everything when I see you," she said. "But Dad, I need you to know something first. Whatever you're about to find out about Justine, whatever secrets she kept, I don't think she kept them to hurt you. I think she was trying to protect you." "Protect me from what?" "That's what we need to find out," Elena said. "I'll be on the next flight out. I'll meet you at Griffith Observatory at 2. After they hung up, Elon sat in his study as the sun rose over Austin. His daughter knew something. She'd found letters from someone named David Reeves. She'd been researching Justine's past for a college project. How much did Elena know? Had she already discovered whatever Catherine Morrison wanted him to find in those journals? Elon looked at his phone, at Marcus Chen's text message still glowing on the screen. "Tomorrow, Griffith Observatory, Los Angeles, 2 p.m. Bring your daughter. She needs to hear this too." Tomorrow was today now. In 8 hours, he would stand under the white domes of Griffith Observatory and learn the truth about his first wife's secret life. His daughter would be there beside him, carrying her own discoveries, her own pieces of the puzzle. And somewhere in a storage unit on Sepulveda Boulevard, Catherine Morrison's journals waited with answers that would change everything. Elon Musk stood up, his decision made. He would fly to Los Angeles. He would meet Marcus Chen. He would read those journals with his daughter. And he would finally learn what Justine had been hiding all those years ago in 2001, when their marriage was young and Nevada hadn't been born yet, and the future still seemed like something they could control. Whatever the truth was, he would face it, even if it destroyed every memory he had left of the woman he'd once loved. The private jet landed at Van Nuys Airport at noon. Elon hadn't slept on the flight. He'd spent the 2.5 hours staring at Catherine Morrison's letter, reading it over and over until he'd memorized every word. His security team was waiting on the tarmac with 2 black SUVs. They drove through Los Angeles traffic in silence, heading toward Griffith Observatory. Elon watched the city pass by outside the tinted windows, palm trees and strip malls, billboards and apartment buildings. Justine had lived here once, had driven these same streets. She died on Pacific Coast Highway not far from here. He pushed that thought away. At 1:30, they pulled into the parking lot below Griffith Observatory. The iconic white building sat on the southern slope of Mount Hollywood, overlooking the entire Los Angeles basin. On clear days, you could see from the mountains to the ocean. Today was clear. Elon got out of the SUV and looked up at the observatory. He'd been here before, years ago, with Justine and their twin sons. The boys had been maybe 5 years old, excited about the telescopes and the planetarium. Justine had held their hands and pointed out constellations on the ceiling display. That was a good memory. One of the few completely good memories from those years. He checked his phone. Elena had texted 20 minutes ago, just landed. "Uber is taking me to Griffith. Be there by 2. Another text message sat below Elena's, the one from Marcus Chen last night. Elon stared at it, then typed a reply, "I'm here. Where are you?" The response came immediately, "West Terrace. Look for a man in a gray suit." Elon walked up the main path toward the observatory entrance, his security team following at a discreet distance. Tourists were everywhere, families with children, couples taking selfies, students sketching the building's Art Deco details. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that someone's entire history was about to be rewritten. The West Terrace overlooked the city. Elon found it easily, a wide stone platform with metal railings and telescopes pointed toward the downtown skyline. A dozen people stood scattered around, looking at the view. One man stood alone at the far end, wearing a gray suit despite the warm February afternoon. He was Asian, maybe mid-50s, with graying black hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He looked like a lawyer or an accountant, someone careful and precise. As Elon approached, the man turned. His expression was calm, patient, like he'd been waiting for this moment for a very long time. "Mr. Musk," the man said, extending his hand. "I'm Marcus Chen." Elon shook his hand. Marcus's grip was firm but not aggressive. His eyes were intelligent and sad. "You have a lot of explaining to do," Elon said. "I know, that's why we're here." Marcus gestured toward the railing. "Your daughter should arrive soon. Should we wait for her?" "No," Elon said. "Start explaining now. Who are you? Why are you involved in this? Marcus nodded as if he'd expected that response. He pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it to Elon. It read, Marcus Chen, private investigator, Harrison and Chen Legal Services. I'm a private investigator, Marcus said. I was hired by Catherine Morrison in April 2023, about 18 months ago. She knew she was dying. She wanted to make sure certain information reached you after her death, but she wanted it done carefully, thoughtfully. Information about my dead wife having an affair, Elon said flatly. Marcus's expression didn't change. Mr. Musk, Catherine's letter was written to get your attention, to make sure you actually open the journals and read them. But the word affair can mean many different things. It usually means one thing. Not always. Marcus turned to look out over Lowe's Angels. I've been a private investigator for 30 years. I've seen a lot of marriages, a lot of secrets, and I've learned that the truth is almost always more complicated than it appears. So tell me the truth, Elon demanded. Who was Justine involved with? When did it happen? Why did she hide it? Marcus shook his head. I can't tell you everything yet. That's not how Catherine wanted this to happen. She left very specific instructions. You need to read the journals with your daughter present. You need to hear what Alina has discovered. And you need to understand the context before you jump to conclusions. Elon felt anger rising in his chest, hot and sharp. You sent me a cryptic letter about my wife cheating on me. You made me fly to Lowe's Angels. You dragged my daughter into this. And now you won't tell me what's going on. I'm trying to protect you, Marcus said quietly. From what? From making the same mistake Justine made. Marcus turned back to face him. From carrying guilt that isn't yours to carry. From believing a story about your marriage that isn't true. Before Elon could respond, a voice called out behind them, Dad. He turned. Alina was walking across the terrace, a backpack slung over one shoulder. She looked tired, her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wore Stanford sweatpants and a hoodie. But her eyes were sharp, focused. She'd brought something with her, a shoebox, old and battered, tucked under her arm. Alina, Elon said, relief flooding through him. Having his daughter here made this feel less like a nightmare and more like something he could handle. Alina hugged him quickly, then turned to Marcus. You must be Marcus Chen. I am, Marcus said. Thank you for coming on such short notice. I was going to call my dad this week anyway, Alina said. She held up the shoebox. After I found these last summer, I knew we needed to talk. I just didn't know how to start the conversation. Elon stared at the box. What is that? Alina looked at him, and her eyes were full of compassion and sadness. Letters, she said. Letters from a man named David Reeves to Justine Wilson. I found them in Grandma Riley's attic when I stayed there last summer. Grandma had them in storage. She said Justine had left them with her years ago, before she died. Who is David Reeves? Elon asked. Marcus answered. He's a trauma counselor who worked in Palo Alto in the early 2000s. He specialized in helping women who had experienced violence. The word violence hung in the air like smoke. Elon looked between Marcus and Alina, trying to understand. What are you saying? That Justine saw a counselor. That's not an affair. Dad, Alina interrupted gently, I need to show you these letters. But first, I need you to promise me something. Promise me you'll read them with an open mind. Promise me you won't jump to conclusions until you've heard the whole story. Alina, just tell me what happened. I can't, she said. Not yet, because I don't know the whole story either. That's why we're here. That's why Marcus has Catherine's journals. Marcus reached into his briefcase and pulled out a leather-bound journal, worn and old. This is Catherine Morrison's first journal, dated from March 2001. She was an emergency room nurse at Stanford Hospital. She kept detailed records of her patients, especially the ones who affected her deeply. He held the journal out toward Elon. Justine Wilson was one of those patients. Elon's hands were shaking again as he took the journal. The leather was soft, aged, real. On the first page in Catherine's neat nursing handwriting was a date, March 7, 2001. Below that an entry began, patient JW, age 28, admitted to ER at 11:47 p.m. Multiple contusions, defensive wounds on arms and hands. Patient reports assault in parking garage near Sand Hill Road. Elon stopped reading. His vision blurred. Sand Hill Road. That was in Palo Alto, near where his PayPal offices had been, near where Justine used to meet him for dinner when she was working on her novels. She was attacked, Elon whispered. Yes, Marcus said softly. When? March 2001, 4 months before Nevada was born. The world seemed to tilt. Elon gripped the railing to steady himself. She never told me. She never said anything. Alina moved closer to her father, her hand on his arm. That's what the letters are about, Dad. David Reeves was her therapist. He helped her work through the trauma. These letters, she held up the shoebox, they're part of her therapy. He would write to her between sessions, helping her process what happened. Why didn't she tell me? Elon's voice cracked. I was her husband. I could have helped her. I could have. That's exactly what Catherine wanted you to understand, Marcus interrupted. Why Justine stayed silent. Why she carried this secret even after Nevada died, even through your divorce. She was trying to protect you, Mr. Musk. In her mind, she was protecting you. Protecting me from what? From the guilt, Alina said quietly. From blaming yourself. From falling apart when you were already under so much pressure with PayPal and starting SpaceX. She thought if you knew, you'd destroy yourself trying to fix something that couldn't be fixed. Elon looked at his daughter, this 18-year-old who somehow understood things he didn't. How do you know all this? Because I read the letters, Alina said. All 15 of them, and they explained everything. Why Justine pulled away, why she couldn't let you get close after Nevada died, why your marriage fell apart. It wasn't about love, Dad. It was about trauma she couldn't share. Marcus opened his briefcase again and pulled out more journals, 5 in total. Catherine Morrison kept records for 20 years. She believed someday you would need to know the truth, but she also believed you needed to hear it in the right way, with the right context. He set the journals on the stone railing. These contain everything: Justine's hospital records, her therapy notes, Catherine's observations as her friend. They explain what happened in March 2001 and everything that came after. But there's something else, Marcus continued. Something Catherine discovered just before she died. Something about the night Justine died in 2011. Elon's head snapped up. What about it? Justine was going to call you the day she died, Marcus said. She had finally decided to tell you everything. About the attack, about the therapy, about why she kept it secret. She was ready to be honest after all those years. Alina pulled a piece of paper from the shoebox. This is a copy of her final journal entry from the morning she died. Catherine's family gave it to Marcus. She handed it to her father. Elon read it with trembling hands. March 2, 2011, I'm going to call Elon today. I'm going to tell him everything. He deserves to know why I couldn't let him in, why I pushed him away. I'm ready to stop protecting him and start trusting him with the truth. The paper shook in Elon's grip. She died that afternoon, Marcus said quietly, before she could make the call. Elon couldn't speak. The words on the page blurred as tears filled his eyes. Justine had been ready to tell him. After all those years of silence, all that distance and pain, she'd finally gathered the courage to share her secret. And then she died. I need to sit down, Elon said, his voice barely a whisper. Alina guided him to a nearby bench. Marcus followed, carrying his briefcase and the stack of journals. Tourists around them continued taking photos and pointing at the city below, oblivious to the fact that a man's entire understanding of his past was crumbling. Elon sat with his head in his hands, trying to process everything. Justine had been attacked. She'd hidden it from him. She carried that trauma through her pregnancy with Nevada, through their son's death, through their divorce. And just when she decided to finally tell him, she died. The attack, Elon said, looking up at Marcus. Tell me what happened. I need to know everything. Marcus sat down beside him, opening the first journal carefully. According to Catherine's records, Justine was working late at a coffee shop in Palo Alto on March 7, 2001. She was writing her novel. You were supposed to meet her for dinner at 8 o'clock, but you got held up at the PayPal offices with meetings. Elon remembered those days. The endless meetings, the pressure of building a company, the constant fire drills. He'd canceled on Justine dozens of times. She decided to wait for you in the parking garage, Marcus continued. It was around 11:30 at night. A man approached her as she was getting into her car. He tried to rob her, but when she resisted, he became violent. Alina's hand tightened on her father's arm. A security guard heard her screaming and intervened, Marcus said. The attacker ran. The guard called 911 and Justine was taken to Stanford Hospital. That's where Catherine Morrison met her. Catherine was the ER nurse on duty. What were her injuries? Elon asked, his voice hollow. Marcus consulted the journal. Bruises on her arms and face, defensive wounds on her hands, minor cuts, nothing broken. Physically, she would heal within a few weeks. But emotionally, Alina asked. Emotionally, it was devastating, Marcus said. Catherine's notes described Justine as being in shock. She kept asking Catherine not to call her husband. She said you were dealing with too much stress already, that you didn't need another burden. Elon stood up abruptly, pacing to the railing. I was her husband. Protecting her was my job. How could she think she was a burden? Because that's what trauma does, Alina said softly. In my psychology classes, we've learned about this. Trauma survivors often blame themselves. They convince themselves they're a problem that needs to be hidden rather than a person who needs help. Marcus nodded. Catherine tried to convince Justine to tell you. According to her journal entries, they had several conversations about it over the following weeks, but Justine refused. She said you were in the middle of crucial negotiations with eBay to sell PayPal. She said you were barely sleeping, that the pressure might break you. So she carried it alone, Elon said bitterly. Not entirely alone, Marcus corrected. Catherine connected her with David Reeves, the trauma counselor. He specialized in helping women process experiences like this. Justine started seeing him twice a week. Alina opened the shoebox and carefully removed the letters. They were in chronological order, each one dated and numbered. She handed the first one to her father. These aren't love letters, Dad, she said. They're therapeutic correspondence. Dr. Reeves would write to Justine between sessions, helping her work through her feelings. It was part of his treatment method. Elon took the letter. It was dated March 15, 2001, 1 week after the attack. The handwriting was neat, professional. Dear Justine, thank you for your honesty in our session today. It takes tremendous courage to talk about what happened to you. I want you to know that none of this was your fault. Not the attack, not your response to it, not your decision to keep it private. You mentioned feeling guilty about not telling your husband. This is a common response to trauma. We convince ourselves we're protecting others when we're really protecting ourselves from vulnerability. There's no shame in that. Healing happens on your own timeline. I want you to consider something before our next session. What would it mean to trust your husband with this truth? Not because you owe it to him, but because carrying it alone is exhausting you. You don't have to decide now. Just think about it. Dr. David Reeves. Elon's hands were steady now, but his heart was breaking. The letter was kind, professional, exactly what someone would write to help a patient heal. There was no romance in it, no suggestion of anything inappropriate. How many letters are there? He asked. 15, Alina said, spanning from March 2001 to August 2001. They stopped when Justine found out she was pregnant with Nevada. Marcus pulled out another journal. Catherine's entries from that time period show that Justine was making progress in therapy. She was starting to work through the trauma, starting to consider telling you what had happened. And then she got pregnant. Nevada, Elon whispered. According to Catherine, the pregnancy changed everything, Marcus said. Justine became fixated on being a perfect mother, on creating a safe environment for the baby. She stopped therapy with Dr. Reeves. She threw herself into preparing for Nevada's birth. Alina pulled out another letter, this one dated August 10, 2001. Dear Justine, I understand your decision to end our sessions. Pregnancy is a time of tremendous change, and it's natural to want to focus on the future rather than the past. But I want you to remember something. Unprocessed trauma doesn't disappear. It waits. It finds other ways to express itself. If you ever need to continue this work, my door is always open. Congratulations on your pregnancy. I hope motherhood brings you joy. Dr. David Reeves. She never went back to therapy, Marcus said. She convinced herself that having a baby would heal her, that becoming a mother would make everything okay. And then Nevada died. Elon said. The silence that followed was heavy. All three of them stood on the terrace, the city of Los Angeles spread out before them, and thought about a baby who lived only 10 weeks. Marcus opened another journal, this one from June 2002. Catherine's entries from after Nevada's death are difficult to read. Justine fell into a deep depression, and she convinced herself that the attack had somehow caused Nevada's death. That's not medically possible, Elon said immediately. SIDS has no clear cause, the doctors said. The doctors told her the same thing, Marcus interrupted. But grief doesn't listen to logic. Justine believed that the stress she carried from the attack had somehow affected her pregnancy, had somehow made Nevada vulnerable. Alina's voice was thick with tears. She blamed herself, Dad, for Nevada dying. She thought if she'd told you about the attack, if she'd stayed in therapy, if she'd processed her trauma properly, she thought Nevada would still be alive. Elon felt like he couldn't breathe. Justine had carried that guilt, that impossible, irrational guilt. That's why our marriage fell apart, he said slowly, understanding flooding through him. Not because we didn't love each other, because she was drowning in guilt she couldn't share. Yes, Marcus said. Catherine wrote extensively about this. Justine wanted to tell you so many times after Nevada died, but by then, the secret had become too big. She'd carried it for over a year. How do you tell someone you've been hiding something that huge? How do you admit you've been lying by omission for so long? So she just pulled away, Elon said. She built walls, Elena added. Psychological walls to protect herself from the pain of her own guilt, and those walls kept you out too. Marcus pulled out more journals. After your divorce in 2008, Justine started therapy again. Different therapist, but same goal, trying to work through the trauma and the guilt. According to Catherine's later entries, Justine was making real progress by 2010. She was writing again, Elon remembered. I saw some of her blog posts. She seemed lighter, happier. She was healing, Marcus confirmed. And part of that healing meant finally being ready to tell you the truth. Catherine's last entries from early 2011 described Justine planning how to approach you, what to say, how to explain everything. He pulled out a photocopy of a journal entry dated February 2011. Justine called today. She's finally ready to tell Elon everything. She said she's been carrying this weight for 10 years and it's time to put it down. She's scared, but she's determined. She said she owes him the truth, and she owes herself the freedom of not hiding anymore. Elon stared at the words. 10 years. Justine had carried this secret for 10 years before deciding to share it. When was she going to tell me? He asked. March 2, 2011, Marcus said quietly. She wrote in her personal journal that morning that she was going to call you that day. She was going to ask if you could meet for coffee. Just the two of you, no lawyers, no pressure. Just two people who used to love each other, finally being honest. But she died that afternoon, Elena said, wiping tears from her cheeks. The drunk driver hit her on Pacific Coast Highway before she could make the call. Elon walked back to the railing, gripping it so hard his knuckles turned white. Justine had been minutes away, maybe hours away, from finally telling him, from finally freeing herself from a decade of silence. And then she was gone. The police found her phone in her hand, Marcus said. After the accident, she'd pulled over to the side of the road. Your number was on the screen, but she hadn't hit send yet. She was gathering courage, Elena whispered. One more minute and she would have called. Elon turned to face them, his face wet with tears he didn't try to hide. I could have helped her. If she'd told me in 2001 or after Nevada died or during the divorce, any time at all, I could have helped her. I could have told her it wasn't her fault. I could have. But that's exactly what she was afraid of, Elena interrupted. Don't you see, Dad? She knew you'd blame yourself. She knew you'd say you should have been there that night, should have met her on time, should have protected her. She was trying to save you from that guilt. Instead, we both carried it, Elon said, separately, alone. Marcus closed the journals carefully. That's what Catherine Morrison wanted you to understand. Why she waited until after her death to tell you this. Justine loved you enough to try to protect you from pain, even though that protection damaged your marriage. And you loved her enough to spend 14 years wondering what you did wrong, trying to figure out how you failed. Neither of you failed, Elena said firmly. Trauma failed you, secrets failed you, but your love for each other was real. That's what these journals prove." They sat together on the bench for a long time, the three of them silent as the afternoon sun moved across the sky. Tourists came and went. Children laughed at the telescopes. Life continued around them while Elon's understanding of his own past completely transformed. Finally, Marcus spoke. "Mr. Musk, there's more to the story. Something Catherine discovered in the months before she died. Something that connects everything together in a way you need to understand." Elon looked up, exhausted. What else could there possibly be? Marcus pulled out another journal, this one newer looking than the others. The cover was dated 2024. Catherine was diagnosed with cancer in March of last year. She knew she didn't have much time. She started going through all her old records, organizing everything for her family. He opened the journal to a page marked with a yellow sticky note. In July 2024, she found something she'd forgotten about. Medical records from June 2002, right after Nevada died. Elena leaned forward. "What kind of medical records?" "Justine came to see Catherine at the hospital 2 weeks after Nevada's funeral," Marcus explained. "She wasn't sick, but she needed someone to talk to. Someone who knew about the attack, who understood what she'd been carrying." Marcus began reading from Catherine's 2024 entry. "I was going through old files today and found my notes from June 15, 2002. I'd forgotten how devastated Justine was. She came to the hospital looking for me, barely holding herself together. The autopsy results for Nevada had just come back, confirming SIDS, no other factors, nothing anyone could have prevented. But Justine was convinced it was her fault. She kept saying the stress from the attack must have affected her pregnancy, must have somehow made Nevada vulnerable. I explained that wasn't how SIDS works, that there's no medical connection between maternal stress and sudden infant death. But she wouldn't listen. She said she'd been carrying the secret of the attack through her entire pregnancy. Said she'd been anxious and scared and hypervigilant, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. She believed that anxiety had somehow transmitted to Nevada in the womb, had made him fragile." Marcus paused, looking at Elon. "Do you understand what Catherine is describing? Justine didn't just feel guilty about not telling you. She believed she had caused Nevada's death through her silence." Elon's voice was barely audible. "That's insane. Medical science doesn't work that way." "Of course it doesn't," Elena said gently. "But trauma isn't rational, Dad. Justine's brain was trying to make sense of an impossible tragedy. She couldn't accept that Nevada died for no reason, so she created a reason. She blamed herself." Marcus continued reading. "I spent 2 hours with Justine that day trying to explain the facts about SIDS. Showed her studies, statistics, medical explanations. Nothing I said made a difference. She'd built this narrative in her mind and it was unshakable. She made me promise, again, not to tell Elon about the attack. She said if he knew, he would blame himself for not protecting her that night in the parking garage. She said she couldn't live with being the reason he destroyed himself with guilt. I realize now that I should have broken that promise. I should have told Elon everything for both their sakes. But I was a nurse, not a therapist. I thought I was respecting patient confidentiality. I thought I was honoring a friend's wishes. Instead, I watched their marriage fall apart over the next 6 years, knowing the real reason but feeling powerless to stop it." Marcus closed the journal. "Catherine carried tremendous guilt about keeping Justine's secret. That's part of why she wanted you to know now, after her death. She felt responsible for the damage that silence caused." Elon stood up and walked to the edge of the terrace again. Below, Los Angeles stretched endlessly, millions of people living millions of lives, all with their own secrets and pain. Somewhere in that vast city, Justine had driven her last drive, made her last decision to finally tell the truth. "Our marriage ended because Justine thought she killed our son," Elon said slowly. "And I spent 16 years thinking I failed her somehow. We were both drowning in guilt that wasn't real." "But the pain was real," Elena said, joining him at the railing. "The grief was real. Nevada's death was real. The guilt might have been misplaced, but the love underneath it, that was real too." Marcus approached with another journal. "There's one more thing you need to see. Catherine wrote this in September 2024, just a few weeks before she died. He handed the journal to Elon, open to the final entry. September 18, 2024, I have maybe 6 weeks left. The pain is manageable with medication, but I'm getting weaker. My daughters keep asking if I have any final wishes, anything I need to take care of before I go. I told them about Justine's secret today, about the promise I kept for over 20 years, about the journals I've been keeping, documenting everything I knew. I told them I want these journals to reach Elon Musk after I die. My oldest daughter asked me why. Why burden him with this information now after so many years? Why not let the past stay buried? I told her because Elon deserves to know the truth. Because he spent his entire adult life trying to save the world, building electric cars to save the climate, building rockets to make humanity multiplanetary, building tunnels and solar panels and battery factories. He's trying to save everyone and everything. But I don't think anyone ever told him that he didn't need to save Justine, that her struggle wasn't his failure, that sometimes people we love carry burdens we can't lift for them, no matter how hard we try. I've watched Elon from a distance over the years, read articles about him, seen interviews. He works himself to exhaustion. He takes on impossible challenges. He pushes and pushes and pushes like he's trying to prove something. Maybe he's trying to prove he's not the man who failed his first wife and lost his first son. Maybe he's still trying to save them, even though they're gone. So I'm telling him the truth because I think he needs to hear it. You didn't fail. You were a good husband. You loved your wife and your son. Sometimes terrible things happen, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop them. I hope this frees him somehow. I hope knowing the truth about Justine's secret lets him forgive himself for things that were never his fault. That's my final gift to him. The truth, delivered too late to save his marriage, but maybe in time to save him from a lifetime of unnecessary guilt. Elon finished reading and closed the journal carefully. His hands weren't shaking anymore. Something in Catherine's words had steadied him, centered him. She was right, he said quietly. I have been trying to save everyone, trying to prove I'm not the man who couldn't save his wife and child. Alina took his hand. But Dad, you can't save people from their own trauma. You can't love someone hard enough to heal their wounds. That's not how healing works. I know that now, Elon said. But I didn't know it then. When Justine was pulling away, when our marriage was falling apart, I thought if I just worked harder, made more money, gave her everything she wanted, I thought I could fix it. You were trying, Alina said. That's all anyone can do. Marcus gathered up the journals and placed them carefully in his briefcase. Catherine left instructions for these to be given to you, Mr. Musk. They're yours now. You can read them as many times as you need to. Every detail of what Justine went through, what she felt, what she wanted to tell you, it's all documented. What about David Reeves? Elon asked suddenly. The therapist, is he still alive? Yes, Marcus said. He's retired now, living in Carmel. He's 71 years old. Catherine contacted him before she died, told him she was going to reveal Justine's secret to you. He said if you ever wanted to talk to him, to understand more about Justine's therapy and healing process, he'd be willing to meet with you. He has something else too, Alina added, pulling a piece of paper from the shoebox. According to this letter Catherine sent to Dr. Reeves, Justine left something in his care in 2011, something she meant to give you when she called you that day. Elon took the paper. It was a photocopy of a letter from Catherine to David Reeves, dated August 2024. Dear David, I'm writing to let you know that I've decided to tell Elon Musk the truth about what happened to Justine in 2001. I know we both promised her we'd keep her secret, but I'm dying, and I believe the secret has caused more harm than the truth ever could. I remember you told me once that Justine left an envelope with you in February 2011, just before she died. She said it was for Elon, something she wanted him to have if she ever lost her nerve about telling him the truth in person. After she died, you didn't know whether to give it to him or not. You decided to wait to see if the right moment ever came. I think the right moment is now. After Elon reads my journals and understands what Justine went through, I think he'll be ready to receive whatever she left for him. Please give him the envelope. Let Justine's own words complete the story I'm starting. With gratitude for the care you gave our friend, Catherine Morrison." Elon looked at Marcus. "There's a letter from Justine, something she wrote for me before she died." "Yes," Marcus said. "Dr. Reeves has been holding it for 13 years. He didn't know if he should give it to you after Justine died. He thought maybe it would cause more pain than healing. But now, with Catherine's journals providing context, he thinks you're ready." "Where is he?" Elon asked. "I need to see him. I need that letter." "His address is in Carmel," Marcus said. "I can arrange a meeting. But Mr. Musk, I want you to understand something first. That letter was written by a woman who was finally ready to be vulnerable, finally ready to ask for help. Whatever she wrote it believing she would be alive to discuss it with you afterward." "She never got that chance," Elena said softly. "No," Marcus agreed. "So when you read it, remember that it's only half of a conversation. Justine wrote those words planning to follow them up with her voice, her presence, her explanations. You'll have her words, but not her." Elon nodded. "I understand, but I still need to read it. I need to know what she wanted to tell me." Marcus pulled out his phone and typed quickly. "I'm texting Dr. Reeves now. He said he'd be available whenever you were ready." He looked up. "He can meet you tomorrow morning at his home in Carmel, 10 o'clock. "We'll be there," Elon said, glancing at his daughter. Elena nodded. "I'm coming with you, Dad. Whatever Justine wrote, you shouldn't read it alone." The sun was lower now, casting long shadows across the terrace. The white domes of Griffith Observatory glowed in the golden light. Somewhere below, in the vast sprawl of Los Angeles, the city continued its endless motion. Cars on freeways, people in buildings, lives intersecting and diverging in patterns too complex to map. Elon thought about Justine driving on Pacific Coast Highway 13 years ago, her phone in her hand, his number on the screen. One more minute of courage and she would have pressed send. One more day and they would have sat together over coffee and finally told each other the truth. But she'd run out of time. Now he was here, standing where she once stood, looking at the city where she once lived, finally understanding the weight she'd carried all those years. "Thank you," Elon said to Marcus, "for keeping these journals safe, for making sure I learned the truth." Marcus inclined his head. Catherine Morrison was a remarkable woman. She believed in honesty, even when it's painful, even when it comes too late to save a marriage, but just in time to save a soul. "That's what this is, isn't it?" Elena said. "Saving Dad from spending the rest of his life blaming himself for something that wasn't his fault." "Yes," Marcus said simply. They stood together as the sun sank toward the horizon, three people bound together by one woman's secret and another woman's determination to reveal it. The mystery was unfolding, piece by piece, leading them toward Carmel and David Reeves and Justine's final message. But the most important revelation had already happened. Elon Musk hadn't failed his first wife. She had loved him, protected him in her own broken way, and carried a burden alone because she thought that was what love required. Now, finally, he could begin to forgive himself for a tragedy that was never his to prevent. They drove north the next morning, Elon and Elena in one of the black SUVs, following the Pacific Coast Highway toward Carmel, the same highway where Justine had died. Elon had barely slept. He'd spent most of the night in his hotel room reading Catherine Morrison's journals, all 5 of them, cover to cover. Every entry about Justine, every detail of her hospital visits, her therapy sessions, her struggles with guilt and trauma. By 3 in the morning, he'd understood his first wife in ways he never had when she was alive. Elena had fallen asleep around midnight, exhausted from the emotional weight of the day. But when Elon knocked on her door at 7, she was already awake, already dressed, already ready for whatever came next. Now they drove in comfortable silence, watching the ocean crash against the rocks below the highway. The morning was clear and cool, typical February weather for the California coast. "Are you nervous?" Elena asked as they passed through Monterey. "Yes," Elon admitted. "I don't know what Justine wrote in that letter. I don't know if I'm ready to hear it." "You're ready," Elena said with certainty. "You couldn't have been ready 13 years ago when she died. You would have been too raw, too defensive. But now, after reading Catherine's journals, after understanding what Justine went through, now you're ready." Elon glanced at his daughter. When did you get so wise? I've had time to think about all this, Elena said. I found those letters last summer, remember? I've been carrying this knowledge for months, trying to figure out how to tell you. Part of me is relieved that Catherine Morrison took the decision out of my hands. They reached Carmel just before 9:30. The town was beautiful, quaint cottages, art galleries, restaurants with ocean views. Tourist season hadn't started yet, so the streets were quiet. David Reeves lived in a small cottage on the south edge of town, overlooking Carmel Bay. The house was painted pale blue with white trim, surrounded by a garden full of native plants and succulents. Elon parked on the street. For a moment, neither he nor Elena moved. "This is it," Elena said softly. "Justine's final words to you are inside that house." "I know," Elon said. His heart was pounding. They walked up the stone path together. Before Elon could knock, the door opened. David Reeves stood there exactly as Marcus had described, 71 years old, white hair, kind eyes. He wore a cardigan and khaki pants, looking more like someone's grandfather than a trauma therapist. "Elon," David said, his voice gentle. "Thank you for coming, and you must be Elena." "Yes, sir," Elena said. "Please come in," David said, stepping aside. The cottage interior was warm and inviting, hardwood floors, comfortable furniture, walls lined with bookshelves. A fire burned in the fireplace despite the mild morning. Through the windows, the Pacific Ocean stretched to the horizon. "Can I get you coffee, tea?" David offered. "No, thank you," Elon said. His voice was tight, controlled. "I appreciate the hospitality, but I need to see the letter. I need to know what Justine wanted to tell me." David nodded as if he'd expected this. "Of course, please sit down." They sat on a worn leather couch facing the fireplace. David settled into an armchair across from them and reached for a wooden box on the side table. "Justine came to see me on February 25th, 2011, David began. "It had been almost 10 years since our last session. She called me out of the blue and asked if we could meet. She said she needed my help with something important." He opened the wooden box carefully. "We met at a coffee shop in Monterey. She looked good, healthier than I'd seen her in years. She told me she'd been in therapy with someone else, that she'd been working through the guilt and trauma. She said she was finally ready to tell you the truth about what happened in 2001. David pulled out a sealed envelope, cream-colored and slightly yellowed with age. But she was scared. She'd carried the secret for so long that she didn't know how to break the silence. She worried you wouldn't understand. She worried you'd blame yourself." He held the envelope, not yet handing it over. "So I suggested she write you a letter first, put her thoughts on paper. That way, even if she lost her nerve when you met in person, she'd have something to fall back on, something to give you that explained everything. She wrote this letter in my office that day," David continued. "Took her almost 2 hours. She cried while writing it. When she finished, she sealed it and asked me to hold on to it. She said if she called you and successfully told you everything in person, she'd come back and destroy the letter. But if something happened to her before she got the chance, I should give it to you." David's voice grew quieter. 5 days later, she died in the car accident. I didn't know what to do. Part of me thought I should give you the letter immediately. But you were grieving, surrounded by lawyers and press. And the letter was so personal, so raw, I decided to wait for the right time. 13 years is a long wait, Elon said. "Yes," David agreed. "But Catherine Morrison was right. You weren't ready before. You needed to understand the context first. The attack, the trauma, the guilt Justine carried about Nevada. Without that context, this letter would have just been more pain without understanding." He finally extended the envelope toward Elon. "Now you're ready. Now you can hear what Justine wanted to tell you with the understanding she never got to provide in person." Elon took the envelope with both hands. His name was written on the front in Justine's handwriting, Elon Musk, nothing else, just his name in her familiar script. Elena took her father's hand and squeezed it. "Would you like privacy to read it?" David asked. Elon looked at his daughter, then at David. "No, Elena should hear this too. And you knew Justine in ways I never did. You helped her when I couldn't. You deserve to know what she wrote." David inclined his head. "If you're sure." "I'm sure," Elon said. He broke the seal on the envelope, his hand steady now. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded twice. He unfolded it carefully and began to read aloud, his voice strong despite the tears already forming in his eyes. My dearest Elon, if you're reading this, it means I never found the courage to tell you these things while I was alive. Or perhaps something happened to me before I could. Either way, you deserve to know the truth. Elon's voice trembled slightly as he continued reading. In March 2001, something terrible happened to me in a parking garage in Palo Alto. I was attacked by a stranger. A security guard saved me before the worst could happen, but the fear, the violence, the helplessness, those things left scars that never showed on my skin. I never told you because I was afraid. Afraid of how much you were already carrying with PayPal, afraid of being a burden, afraid that telling you would break something between us that I didn't know how to fix. I thought I was protecting you by staying silent. Instead, I built a wall between us that neither of us could tear down. Alina's hand tightened on her father's arm. David Reeves sat quietly, his expression compassionate but not surprised. He'd probably read this letter dozens of times over the years, wondering if he'd ever get to deliver it. Elon took a breath and kept reading. When I got pregnant with Nevada 4 months later, I convinced myself that everything would be okay. That becoming a mother would heal me, that our baby would make me whole again. I stopped going to therapy. I threw myself into preparing for his birth. I thought love would be enough. And then we lost him. Elon, losing Nevada destroyed me in ways I still don't fully understand. But worse than the grief was the guilt. I convinced myself that my stress during pregnancy, the anxiety I carried from the attack, had somehow caused his death. I know now that's not how SIDS works. I know the doctors told us there was nothing we could have done differently. But grief isn't rational. I needed a reason for why our perfect baby died, and the only reason I could find was me, my secret, my silence, my failure to process the trauma properly. Elon's voice cracked. He paused, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Alina leaned her head against his shoulder, crying softly. I see now that this guilt destroyed our marriage, not because you failed me, Elon. You didn't fail me. You loved me the best way you knew how, and that was always enough. The failure was mine. I couldn't let you in. I couldn't share the burden I was carrying because I'd convinced myself that protecting you from it was more important than saving our marriage. After the divorce, I spent years in therapy working through all of this, and I finally understood something. The bravest thing I ever did wasn't staying silent to protect you. The bravest thing would have been trusting you with my pain. So I'm going to call you soon. I'm going to ask if we can meet for coffee, just the two of us. And I'm going to tell you everything about the attack, about the guilt, about why I pushed you away when all you wanted was to help me. I don't expect this to fix anything. Our marriage is over, and that's okay. We've both moved on. But I owe you the truth, Elon. I owe you an explanation for why I couldn't be the wife you needed, why I couldn't let you be the husband you wanted to be. Elon paused again, his breathing unsteady. The fire crackled in the fireplace. Outside, seagulls called over the ocean. Time seemed to slow down as he read the final paragraphs. I want you to know that our years together gave me some of the best moments of my life. They gave me Nevada, even if only for 10 weeks. They gave me our beautiful twin boys, our triplets. They gave me a front row seat to watching you change the world. You were building rockets in your garage, dreaming impossible dreams, and I got to be part of that magic. I'm sorry I couldn't stay. I'm sorry I couldn't let you help me heal. But I'm not sorry we loved each other, even imperfectly. So here's what I need you to hear, what I'm finally brave enough to say. You were a good husband. You were a good father. Nevada's death was not your fault. Our divorce was not your failure. You loved me the best way you knew how, and that was always enough. Let go of the guilt, Elon. Whatever you're carrying from our marriage, from Nevada's death, from thinking you should have done something differently, let it go. You can't save everyone. You can't fix everything. Sometimes terrible things happen, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop them. Build your rockets, change the world. Make humanity a multiplanetary species. Be happy. Give yourself permission to be imperfect and still worthy of love. And know that wherever I am, whether this letter reaches you while I'm still alive or after I'm gone, I'm proud of you. I'm grateful for our time together. And I forgive you for anything you think you did wrong because you didn't do anything wrong. I hope someday you can forgive me too. Always yours, Justine. Elon finished reading and sat in silence, the letter resting in his lap. Tears streamed down his face unchecked. Alina was crying openly beside him, her hand still holding his. Even David Reeves had moisture in his eyes. The fire popped. The ocean whispered against the shore outside. And in that small cottage in Carmel, 3 people sat with the ghost of a woman who had finally found her voice 13 years too late. She wrote that she hoped you could forgive her, Alina said softly. But Dad, there's nothing to forgive. She was doing the best she could with impossible pain. I know, Elon said, his voice hoarse. I know that now, but for 16 years I thought I was the one who needed forgiveness. I thought I'd failed her somehow, failed Nevada, failed to be enough. You were enough, David said quietly. Justine knew that. That's what she was trying to tell you. She spent the last year of her life working toward the courage to say those exact words to you, that you were enough, that you were always enough. Elon looked at the therapist. You helped her get to that place. You gave her the tools to start healing. I gave her some tools, David corrected. But Justine did the work. She faced her trauma, examined her guilt, challenged her assumptions. That takes incredible courage. Most people never do it. She was brave, Alina said. Braver than she gave herself credit for. Yes, David agreed. And in the end, she was ready to be vulnerable, ready to tell the truth. She just ran out of time. Elon carefully refolded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. He held it against his chest like something precious and fragile. Can I ask you something? He said to David. Of course. When you saw her that day in February 2011, when she wrote this letter, was she happy? Was she at peace? David considered the question carefully. She was hopeful, he said finally. Maybe not completely at peace. Healing is a journey, not a destination. But she was hopeful. She believed that telling you the truth would free her from the weight she'd been carrying. She was looking forward to that freedom. And then she died before she could reach it, Elon said. Yes, David said. But Elon, I need you to understand something. Justine didn't die carrying the same crushing guilt she carried during your marriage. By 2011, she'd worked through most of that. She understood that Nevada's death wasn't her fault. She understood that keeping the secret was a choice born from love, even if it was the wrong choice. So she'd forgiven herself, Alina asked. She was learning to, David said. That's all any of us can do, learn to forgive ourselves for being human, for making mistakes, for not being perfect. Elon stood and walked to the window, looking out at the ocean. The same ocean Justine had looked at. The same coast she'd driven along on her last day. I've spent my entire adult life trying to solve impossible problems, he said quietly. Climate change, sustainable energy, making humanity multiplanetary. I attack these huge challenges because I believe they can be solved with enough work, enough innovation, enough determination. He turned back to face David and Alina. But I couldn't solve Justine's pain. I couldn't save Nevada. I couldn't make our marriage work. And for years, I've carried those failures alongside all the successes, like they define me more than the rockets or the cars or anything else I've built. That's what Catherine Morrison wanted you to understand, David said. That those weren't failures. They were tragedies. There's a difference. Failures are things you could have prevented with different choices. Tragedies are things that happen despite everyone's best efforts. Nevada's death was a tragedy, Alina said. Justine's trauma was a tragedy. Even her death was a tragedy, a drunk driver, completely random, nothing you could have prevented. But the guilt I've carried, Elon said slowly, that was a choice. Just like Justine chose to carry guilt that wasn't hers to carry, I've been choosing to carry guilt that isn't mine either. Yes, David said simply. Elon looked at the envelope in his hands, at his daughter's tear-stained face, at this man who had helped his first wife find courage she never got to use. She wanted me to let go of the guilt, he said, to forgive myself for things that weren't my fault, to be happy. That's what she wanted, David confirmed. That was her final gift to you, permission to stop punishing yourself for tragedies you couldn't prevent. Then I think, Elon said, his voice growing stronger, I need to honor that gift. I need to finally do what she asked me to do 16 years ago when she was alive, and what she's asking me to do now through this letter." "What's that?" Elena asked. "Let go," Elon said. "Stop carrying the weight of everything I couldn't fix. Stop trying to prove I'm worthy of love by saving the entire world. Just let go." Elena stood and hugged her father tightly. "I think that's the bravest thing you've ever said." They stood together by the window, father and daughter, looking out at the endless Pacific. Behind them, David Reeves sat quietly, bearing witness to a moment of transformation he'd been waiting 13 years to see. Justine Wilson's final words had finally reached the man she'd loved, carried across more than a decade by people who understood that truth, even when it comes late, can still set you free. They sat together for another hour in David Reeves's cottage, talking about Justine, about healing, about the weight of secrets and the freedom of truth. David made tea that no one really drank. The fire burned lower. The morning turned into afternoon. Finally, as they prepared to leave, Elena asked a question that had been building inside her since Griffith Observatory. "Dr. Reeves," she said, "why do you think Catherine Morrison wanted me to be here when Dad learned all of this? Why was it so important that I hear the story too?" David smiled, a knowing, gentle smile. "I was wondering when you'd ask that. Catherine was very specific in her instructions to Marcus Chen. She said Elon couldn't just read the journals, his daughter had to be present." "But why?" Elena pressed. David looked at Elon. "May I be direct with your daughter?" "Please," Elon said. David turned to Elena. "Catherine believed you were the key to making sure your father actually heard what Justine was saying. Not just the facts about the attack and the guilt, but the deeper message underneath." "What message?" Elena asked. "That love isn't about perfection," David said. "That being a good husband, a good father, a good person, none of that requires being flawless. Catherine watched you grow up from a distance, through news articles and interviews. She saw how you talked about your father, how you defended him when others criticized him." Elena nodded. "I've always defended him. People don't understand how hard he works, how much he cares." "Exactly," David said. "But Catherine also saw something else. She saw a young woman who understood psychology, who was studying human behavior and trauma. She believed you had the wisdom to help your father see what he couldn't see on his own." "What couldn't I see?" Elon asked. Elena turned to her father, and suddenly she understood what Catherine Morrison had known all along. "You couldn't see that you were still punishing yourself, Dad. Still trying to earn the right to be loved by working yourself to exhaustion. Still believing that if you just accomplished enough, saved enough people, built enough impossible things, maybe then you deserve forgiveness for Nevada, for Justine, for everything you think you failed at." Elon started to protest, but Elena held up her hand. "I've been watching you my whole life," she continued, her voice gentle but firm. "You sleep 4 hours a night. You run multiple companies simultaneously. You set goals that most people say are impossible, and then you destroy yourself trying to reach them. And I always thought that was just who you were, someone driven, someone visionary. But reading Justine's letters, learning about what she went through, understanding why your marriage ended, it all clicked into place. You're not just driven, Dad. You're trying to prove something. You're trying to prove you're not the man who couldn't save his wife and child." Tears filled Elon's eyes again. "It's okay," Elena said softly. "I understand why. But Dad, that's exactly what Justine was trying to tell you in her letter. That you don't have to prove anything. That you were always enough, even when terrible things happened that you couldn't control." "Catherine knew you needed to hear this from me," Elena continued. "Because I'm your daughter. Because I love you not for what you accomplish, but for who you are. And because I can see what you can't, that you're carrying guilt that was never yours to carry." David nodded. "Catherine told Marcus that Elena was studying psychology, that she'd found the letters from my therapy with Justine. She believed Elena would understand the pattern of behavior, the way trauma gets transmitted across relationships, how people we love inherit our guilt even when we try to protect them from it." "What do you mean?" Elon asked. Elena took her father's hands in hers. "Dad, I've been carrying your guilt too. Did you know that? I've watched you work yourself sick, watched you take on impossible challenges, and I've felt guilty for not being enough to make you happy. For not being enough to make you slow down, take care of yourself, rest. Elon looked shocked. Alina, I never wanted you to feel that way. I know, Alina said. Just like Justine never wanted you to feel guilty about the attack or Nevada's death. But that's how trauma works, Dad. It spreads. The people we love absorb our pain, even when we try to hide it from them. That's what Catherine Morrison understood, David said. She understood that if Elon didn't break this cycle, it would continue. His children would carry his guilt, and their children might carry it too. She wanted to stop the pattern before it became generational. Alina's voice grew stronger, more certain. So here's what I need to say, what I think Justine would say if she were here. Dad, you're allowed to rest. You're allowed to be imperfect. You're allowed to fail at things and still be worthy of love. You don't have to save the entire world to deserve happiness. But the work matters, Elon said quietly. Climate change, sustainable energy, making humanity multiplanetary. These things are important. Of course they are, Alina agreed. But they're important regardless of whether you're trying to prove your worth or not. The work has value on its own. You don't have to hurt yourself to validate it. She squeezed his hands tighter. I need you to understand something, Dad. I'm 18 years old and I've already figured out what took Justine 10 years to learn. The people who love us want our presence more than our perfection. They want our vulnerability more than our strength. They want us to trust them with our pain, not protect them from it. When I found those letters last summer and started researching what happened to Justine, I realized I had a choice. I could keep the information to myself, try to protect you from painful truths, just like Justine did, or I could trust you with the truth, even though it was hard. I chose trust, Alina said, and now I'm asking you to do the same. Trust that you're enough just as you are. Trust that the people who love you, your sons, your friends, we love you for who you are, not for what you accomplish. Trust that Nevada's death and Justine's struggles weren't your fault, and you don't have to spend the rest of your life trying to make up for them. Elon pulled his daughter into a tight embrace, his shoulders shaking with sobs he'd been holding back for 16 years. I don't know if I know how to do that, he whispered. I don't know how to just let go. You don't have to do it alone, Alina said. That's the whole point. Justine tried to carry her burden alone and it destroyed her marriage. You don't have to make the same mistake. Let me help you. Let your sons help you. Let the people who love you in. David stood quietly, bearing witness to this moment of healing. Justine would be proud of you both, he said. This conversation, this honesty, this vulnerability, this is what she wanted for Elon but never managed to give him while she was alive. You're giving him that gift now, Alina. Alina looked at David, tears streaming down her face. I think that's what Catherine Morrison really wanted. She didn't just want Dad to know the facts about what happened to Justine. She wanted him to learn from Justine's mistake, to understand that secrets and silence destroy relationships, even when we think we're being noble. Yes, David said simply. Elon pulled back from the embrace, wiping his eyes. He looked at his daughter with wonder and gratitude. When did you become so wise? I learned from the best, Alina said. From a father who never stops trying, even when things seem impossible. From a mother figure who taught me to be strong. And from a woman I never met who taught me through her story that the bravest thing you can do is admit you can't carry everything alone. Elon looked down at Justine's letter, still clutched in his hand. She wanted me to be happy, to let go of the guilt, to forgive myself. So do that, Alina said. Honor her memory by doing what she asked. Stop punishing yourself for tragedies you couldn't prevent. Start trusting the people who love you with your pain. Be present, be vulnerable, be human. That's terrifying, Elon admitted. I know, Alina said, but it's also freeing. That's what Justine discovered in the last year of her life, that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's courage. That asking for help isn't failure, it's strength. Elon stood, still holding his daughter's hand. He looked at David Reeves. Thank you for helping Justine when she needed it, for keeping this letter safe for 13 years, for understanding that timing matters and truth needs context. You're welcome, David said. I hope it helps you find the peace Justine was seeking when she wrote it. It already has, Elon said. He looked at Alina. And thank you for being brave enough to tell me the truth, even when it was hard, for understanding what I couldn't see, for being the daughter who changes everything." Alina smiled through her tears. "That's what daughters do, Dad. We see our fathers clearly, the good and the broken parts, and we love them anyway." They walked out of the cottage together into the bright California afternoon. The ocean stretched endlessly before them, the same ocean that had been there when Justine lived, when Nevada died, when marriages ended and new ones began. The ocean that would still be there long after all their stories were forgotten. But in that moment, standing together in Carmel, father and daughter understood something essential. The past doesn't have to define the future. Tragedy doesn't have to become identity. Guilt can be released. Forgiveness can be granted, especially to yourself. Elon Musk, the man who built rockets and electric cars, who dreamed of Mars and sustainable futures, finally gave himself permission to be human, to be imperfect, to be enough. And it was his daughter who showed him how. Not through accomplishments or achievements, but through simple, profound wisdom. That love means trusting people with your pain, that healing means letting go of guilt that isn't yours, and that the bravest thing you can do is admit you need help. That was what changed everything. Not the revelation of an affair that never happened, not the details of trauma and tragedy, but the understanding that carrying burdens alone destroys us, while sharing them with the people who love us most sets us free. As they drove back toward Los Angeles, Elon asked Alina one final question. "What made you decide to study psychology? Was it because of all this?" Alina shook her head. "No, I chose psychology before I found the letters. I chose it because I wanted to understand people, why they hurt, why they heal, why they make the choices they make." "And what have you learned?" Elon asked. Alina looked at her father, this brilliant, driven man who had finally allowed himself to be vulnerable. "I've learned that everyone is carrying something heavy, and the kindest thing we can do for each other is offer to help carry the weight, especially when people insist they can manage alone." Elon reached over and squeezed his daughter's hand. "Thank you for helping me carry mine." "Always, Dad," Alina said. "Always." The sun was setting as they reached the outskirts of Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Somewhere in this vast city, Justine had lived and loved and struggled and died. Somewhere here, she'd written stories and raised children and carried impossible guilt. But she'd also left behind a final gift, a letter that took 13 years to deliver but arrived exactly when it was needed most. And in receiving that gift, Elon Musk finally understood what his late wife had been trying to tell him all along. You were enough. You are enough. You will always be enough. The affair he'd feared never existed. There was only love, imperfect, complicated, wounded love that tried its best in impossible circumstances. And now, finally, that love could rest. That was the end of this emotional journey about love, loss, and the courage to forgive ourselves. Where are you listening from? Drop your location in the comments below. I'd love to know where in the world you're tuning in from. If this moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more compelling content like this. Your support helps us create these meaningful explorations of the human experience. And don't keep this to yourself. Share this video with your friends and family. Sometimes the messages we need most are the ones we least expect. Let's spread kindness and awareness together. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next one.